Just recently, I played and reviewed Wonder Boy in Monster World for the Sega Mega Drive and its port to the TurboGrafx CD called the Dynastic Hero. While I can see some of its flaws and think it's not a game for everybody, it's quite an overlooked gem with unique qualities that I found very enjoyable to play through. Twice as a matter of fact, because of the two different renditions. Usually, when a game leaves a great impression on you, you feel intrigued to check out other titles in the same franchise, and that's exactly what I did. There are 6 Wonder Boy titles in total, of which 2 are level-to-level arcade experiences and 4 side-scrolling action-adventure RPGs, the latter forming a sub-series within the main Wonder Boy series titled Monster World. Because the first and second games in the Monster World sub-series are 8-bit, I decided to skip to the follow-up to Wonder Boy in Monster World as the Mega Drive fan that I am. Enter Monster World 4 from 1994. Officially regarded as the 6th and last installment in the Wonder Boy franchise, the Wonder Boy name was dropped from the title because the starring character is for once a girl. Unfortunately, Monster World 4 suffered the same fate as another very obscure title I've reviewed named Pulseman, however, in that it was never published outside of Japan until a re-release over a decade later. While Monster World 4 was part of a certain collection disc that came about on the PlayStation 2 in 2007, it wasn't until the various digital emulated ports in 2012 that the game was officially translated to English by Sega. Now that it is, have we been missing out all these years, or was Monster World 4 kept within Japan for good reason? Today, I'm here to give you the answer to that question. In Monster World 4, we follow and play as an Arabian girl by the name of Asha. Upon hearing spirits whisper on the wind pleading for help, she embarks on a journey to find and aid those spirits. After overcoming a set of trials and earning her title of True Warrior, the Queen of Rapidegna City begs Asha to battle the impending darkness by saving the 4 locked spirits that have protected Monster World age upon age. If the player doesn't decide to be a douchebag, Asha accepts the request and sets out to guarantee a bright future for Monster World. Same shit as Wonder Boy in Monster World, just with a different coat of paint, right? Yes and no. Monster World 4 has some nice storytelling going on for a game of this genre and year that I think holds up decently today. With every spirit you rescue, you learn a bit more about what's going on through short dialogue sessions with the spirits themselves, the Queen, and others, and new events occur every time you return to town. At one point in the game, I was sort of shocked and saddened by what I was seeing. I won't say what it was due to spoilers, but if you've played the game, I think you'll know what I'm referring to. This is largely thanks to the fact the folks in Monster World 4 can be related to, with some colorful writing that is genuinely amusing at times, and distinct yet cliché personalities that you'll recognize from other games, movies, TV shows, or books. Monster World 4 does a reasonable job immersing players into the experience by establishing a connection between them and the in-game characters and their surroundings, which I think was possible for the developers to achieve because there is only one city in the game you keep returning to while you're making progress. You see, in Wonder Boy in Monster World, you travel across a vast interconnected Metroidvania-styled world, where you stumble upon a town every now and then. They are usually small with very few and often uninteresting citizens, but the focus of the game lied a lot more in the journey of traversing different landscapes in order to reach dungeons. Monster World 4 is the opposite of that, where more time is meant to be spent in Rapidegna City and interacting with its people, and less on exploring various locales of the overworld. There is always a short road from town to dungeon, but there's no way to deviate from it at all, and it's, as I said, short. As such, this game is 100% linear, with indeed minimal room for exploration. On one hand, this leads to less misguidance and backtracking. There is just no way to get lost outside of the dungeons, and progression is absolutely smooth as a result. 5 dungeons await Asha before she can face off against the final boss, and they're all accessed by finding their respective medallions somewhere in town. Wandering around where to go next is never for an extended period of time, so for those who get easily lost in more open-ended maps, Monster World 4 should suit you very well with the extremely straightforward execution. On the other hand, if you enjoy searching for nooks and crannies across numerous interconnected areas and revisiting previously visited places with new equipment and upgrades, you'll find this game severely lacking in that department. There are a few hidden spots in the city containing goodies that require some minor out-of-the-box thinking to enter, but they're incredibly limited. Most of the time, things are in plain sight, and you cannot even return to levels you've already cleared in case you did overlook something. This is definitely a step backwards in my eyes, and in between the lack of exploration and lengthy outdoors pathways to the next town or dungeon, that feeling I had with Wonder Boy in Monster World of being on a grand adventure is something I missed in Monster World 4. Like its predecessor, this side-scrolling platformer features some RPG components, but not in the traditional sense of leveling up the protagonist. Scattered about in the monster world are 150 life drops in total. They are found inside treasure chests, specific monsters, and occasionally out in the open. And with every 10 you amass, your maximum health is increased by 1 heart. Additionally, you can collect gold through the same means as life drops, which can then be used for purchasing different sorts of equipment. Every time you clear a dungeon, new armor, swords, and shields become available for steeper and steeper prices. Superior armors grant you extra hit points like life drops do, stronger swords deal more damage to foes, and better shields buff up your defense. This time around, however, you're actually given some insight as to what you're looking at before wasting money on a potentially useless piece of kit. Having to blindly buy stuff in Wonder Boy in Monster World was actually a legit annoyance to me, so I was happy to get some key information in advance. There just had to be a catch, sadly. You don't keep all the equipment for use at any time. Only the most recently purchased gear you will have on you. Often, that's what you want to stick to, but there are shields with elemental defense bonuses, and you don't know in advance what type of monsters you'll have to deal with next. Great! Ignoring that little oversight though, Monster World 4 has been enhanced in many other ways. In general, the game has a much quicker and smoother pace from start to finish. Asha doesn't need special boots to travel at a decent speed, seeing how she can run fast from the get-go. Getting from point A to point B doesn't take any longer than it should, so never does it feel like you're wasting time because of limited ground speed. The combat relishes an overhaul as well. Asha is only capable of wielding swords, but she is very skilled with them. Not only can she slice in front of her, she can also perform an up thrust to take down pesky air creatures and a down thrust to bop enemies in the head. Defending yourself now also takes timing, as your shield has to be pulled out manually by crouching. At the core, it's still about observing enemy patterns and making your move accordingly. But with the mentioned additions, fighting monsters feels less slow and repetitive, making the combat overall more satisfying. If I have to nitpick, I am slightly upset magic got axed. Having the spells in Wonder Boy and Monster World offers players some leniency when they are critically low on health and or don't know how to deal with a certain monster type. I assume they were excluded from Monster World 4 to prevent exploitation. In other words, to keep the challenge level stable and intact. You know, I'm all for that, but couldn't they have simply made magic use highly limited, adding a layer of strategy to the mix? Oh well, to top off the polished mechanics, Asha's controls are supremely responsive and tight. The amount of momentum she maintains in mid-air after a jump is perfect for those demanding platforming sections, and she can even double jump with the aid of her blue Pepalogo friend, a fuzzy cat-bird hybrid companion thing that plays an essential role in passing the intricacies of the level design. This leads me to what I consider to be the biggest improvement in Monster World 4. The dungeon designs. The boost in quality here is remarkable, thankfully, because the dungeons form the largest chunk of the game. Whereas the temples in Wonder Boy and Monster World are all exceptionally easy to grasp with next to no puzzles, the sequel has more complex layouts that require a bit of thought to make your way through. They're not as hard to figure out as, say, in a Zelda title, but they can seem pretty overwhelming at first. You'll be going back and forth between certain rooms in order to progress, and while the exploration factor is virtually non-existent outdoors, it's present in the dungeons to a small extent, with optional treasure chests and life drops that you have to go out of your way for to get to. The temples are also fairly long to boot. Most take around 45 minutes to an hour or so to complete, as opposed to 10 to 15 minutes in Wonder Boy and Monster World. The platforming aspects are a joy as well, partially because of your Peppa logo. He not only allows you to perform a double jump as I mentioned, but also glide across dangerous stage hazards and reach higher ground in special ways. The second reason is that some of the level designs can be particularly tricky to overcome. Jumping from conveyor belt to conveyor belt, for instance, besides demanding a lot of precision for landing, also tends to mess with your mind when they operate in opposite directions. Moments like these are my favorites, probably because of my great love for being uniquely challenged in platformers. Are the dungeon designs perfect? No. I'm going to specifically call out the 3 ice pyramids for this. The objective in each of them is to find 5 hidden animal statues and place them in the correct order within the room that paves the way to the boss. Seems simple enough, but these pyramids are a pain in the ass to navigate, even with the aid of a map, and if you are to discover you've missed any of the statues, you're tasked with some seriously painful and tedious backtracking. Foes respawn whenever a screen is reloaded, so you'd better not die along the way or you're reset to the last time you saved your progress. Save points include a grand total of 2 across the 3 ice pyramids, leaving me with bad memories on this portion of the game. To be frank, you can summon your genie at any time outside of boss fights, who will fly you back to Rapidegna City so you can replenish your health and keep all your objects. This takes away some of the frustration, though you are forced to travel back to the dungeon after hitching a ride, which is a fair consequence in my opinion. The other temples, simply put, were a pleasant experience for me with sufficient save points in the right places. They may not be masterful, but definitely entertaining. The same applies to the boss battles. Last time, I felt as if the majority of bosses were too easy to beat. Bluntly hack away, and 8 times out of 10 I'd win. This time around, strategy is important. Observation and patience is the way to victory, because many encounters have multiple attacks and dodge maneuverings up their sleeves, and there are more bosses to begin with. Perhaps I was just better equipped in Wonder Boy and Monster World when dealing with the big guys, but going balls to the walls got me, personally, killed far more here than in that game. Difficulty is a little hard to judge due to the RPG-ish nature of these titles, but I definitely had a better time fighting bosses in Monster World 4, without a doubt. They don't steal the show like in a certain other game I love to mention so much recently, but they do their job and that's all I'm asking. What does steal the show are the graphics. From a technical standpoint, Monster World 4 completely trumps its predecessor. They're not even in the same league. Wonder Boy and Monster World, while charming and full of bold colors, had a very static look. This game, in sharp contrast, is filled to the brim with detailed sprites, fluid animations, moving backgrounds, and multiple layers of parallax scrolling, giving the graphics a sense of realism and three-dimensional depth. Going hand in hand with these leaps forward in programming is the game's elegant art style. I prefer the locales and themes in Wonder Boy and Monster World, but I still find something to like about the Arabian flavor of the game, and the attention to detail is sublime. I can't help but smile at Asha shaking her butt when she's about to open a treasure chest. Shake your ass! Or how she dashes away and takes cover from an exploding bomb. Monster World 4 overall looks the part and damn fine in doing so. I'm a bit on the fence about the soundtrack, however. Let me state straight away that the instrument quality is very clean. There's no FM harshness whatsoever. In fact, I am at times reminded of the Super Nintendo. The sounds are impressive, and even though the drums aren't sampled, they have plenty of impact in combination with some lovely bass lines. Despite that, many of the songs themselves aren't all that memorable. The main theme has also been arranged into what feels like 75% of the tunes, and began to get on my nerves an hour into the game already. Leitmotifs are awesome when done right. Problem is, I don't think it was done right here. There are delightful compositions to hit your eardrums, and they're more progressive than last time, so it's not a poor soundtrack by any stretch of the imagination. But the short recurring melody is too common for my liking, and the rest of the musical pieces aren't solid enough to win me over. I would say Monster World 4 was an excellent game to wrap up the Wonder Boy franchise with. The story and setting are easy to get into and interesting enough to hold my attention. The pacing and combat feel very solid. The dungeons, with one exception, have good and challenging design in terms of both puzzle solving and platforming. The bosses are fun to take on, and the RPG elements sprinkled in evoke a feeling of growth during the quests. If only it wasn't so restricted when it comes to exploring the Monster World itself and nabbing all sorts of items along the way. Wonder Boy in Monster World captures the spirit of being on a true adventure much better in my eyes. But Monster World 4 is just as outstanding of a game in its own right. Regardless of its deviation from the established series formula, and in conjunction with 6 to 10 hours of gameplay, I can say confidently that people outside of Japan have been missing out for nearly 2 decades. If you have a Wii, PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360, head over to the respective online stores to get yourself a copy of Monster World 4. For the best deal, avoid the Virtual Console because it's the most expensive out of the 3. With that said, someday I'll look at the preceding games in the franchise, but for now, I'm Wonder Boy out. I hope you enjoyed the video, look forward to the promised Ape Escape review up next, and I wish every one of you a great day.